Welcome to the MSJC Internet Authoring Videocast.
In this guided practice video, you'll be learning how to create 2D arrays and how to use them in your Java programs. As you know from reading the lecture, in order to create 2D arrays, what we simply need to do is add another set of square brackets. So if we want to create a 2D array, named array, we could do this. And then to populate it, we need to have a nested set of curly braces. So I'm going to have an opening curly brace, and then inside of that curly brace, we want to have another set of curly braces for each row. And then we'll go ahead and populate this with some literal values. So that would be the first row, and then we want to end with a comma here, and then add another row. So each of the literal values inside of the curly braces being separated by a comma, and then also each of the individual rows, the curly brace sets, being separated by a comma as well. So that gives us a two-dimensional array now. And then we'll go to the closing curly brace for the parent curly braces, and just set a semicolon to end that statement. So what we have now is we have a two-dimensional array that consists of 3 rows and 5 columns. So the values that we put in, the literals that are inside of each row, would then determine the number of columns for each row. Now to parse this array, we're going to create a nested for loop. So our outer for loop, we'll create an int variable called row. That'll be equal to 0. We could use I here. It's just easier to keep track of it if we name the variable row, because that's the outer loop is going to represent the rows and the nested loop is going to represent the columns. And so we want to run this while row is less than our array's length, and then increment row each time we go through the loop. And now the nested for loop will create an int called col, short for column, assign it the value of 0. And we'll run this as long as col is less than our array, and then in square brackets 0 dot length. So that means the row length. And then increment col each time through that for loop. Now we could actually change that. We could put the variable row in there instead of the 0 for the conditional expression, and I'll come back and show you that in a second. So inside the nested for loop now, we'll just go ahead and create our output to the screen. And so this is going to be array, and then whatever the current row value is, and the column. So whatever row we're in, we'll print out the value that's stored within that column. Because if you think about it, if you look at the literal values that we typed in for the array, it's the columns that actually hold the values. The 3 separate curly brace sets, each of those is the rows. So let's go ahead and run this. And you can see there is all of our values being printed out, 1 through 15. And then we'll just quickly go back here and show you that instead of putting 0 in here, if we put in row, that would work as well. We still get the same output. So it's kind of an interesting concept here. We could actually have an odd length row. So let's just add another value in here. Let's put 20 in row number 2. So let's go back here now, put this back to just saying array 0, which basically what that's getting the length from is just the first row. So the first row only has 5 values in it, right? But the second row now has 6 values in it. So what you'll see is, because this conditional expression is only testing the values or the number of elements in the first row, we won't see that 20 printed out. See, it's still the same output that we had previously. But if we change this to row, since the variable row, its value is changing each time we go through that outer for loop, we're incrementing it. So now it will correctly identify this row as the second row and identify its length as having 6 values and properly output that. So now you see we do get that value 20 in there. So just something kind of interesting to stick in your brain there and use for later. It doesn't come up a lot that you have uneven elements as far as your 2D rows or your 2D arrays are concerned, but just wanted to show you that little nifty item to help you better understand what we're doing here within these nested for loops. So the best way to summarize that is just whenever you have the array's row length, that's identifying the number of columns within the row. Now let's go ahead and enhance this. Let's create a custom method for creating our 2D arrays. So this will be a public int 2 square brackets to say we're going to return then a 2-dimensional array, and we'll call it create 2D array. And then that's going to take in 2 parameters. We'll have an int for rows and an int for the number of columns. Now the first thing I want to do here is create an instance of our random number class so that we can just generate random numbers to populate the new array that's being built inside of this method. And then we'll go ahead and declare the array. So it'll be of int type, 2-dimensional array. We'll call it array, and that'll be equal to a new int with rows defined from our parameter that we're passing in, and the number of columns being defined from the parameter columns that we're passing in, or calls that we're passing in. Now we'll need to create a nested for loop to be able to populate the rows and the columns here. So we'll do a for with int row equal to 0. We'll run it while row is less than our array's length, and we'll populate or increment row each time through the loop. Then the nested portion. Oops, I didn't get array spelled there, did I? And we didn't get a semi there. Okay, so now the nested for loop will be a for int call equal to 0. We'll run it while the call is less than our array row length, and then increment call each time through that loop. Now in here we'll just simply use the array at whatever row and column we are currently at, and assign to it a random number using next int, and we'll just choose 100 here, so 0 through 99 to populate the values for each of the elements in this array. So now that the array is built, the last thing here to finish off our custom method would be to just go ahead and return our array as the result. So let's scroll down here now into our main. We can do away with this array here, and then we're going to need to, when we want to use that method, we'll have to have an instance of our GP8B class. We'll just call it GP. that'll be a new GP8B. 8, not an asterisk. Now we'll go ahead and generate that new array using our create 2D and let's make it a 5x4 array. Okay, now what we really need to do here is assign this to a new array. So let's generate an int new array and make that equal then to the results of running create 2D array, passing a value of 5 for the rows and 4 for the columns. Oh, that's right. This is why we're getting the error there. I didn't put in our instance of the class because it's not a static method, right? So we have to put the instance of the class period and then call the array using that method. Remember, we're passing this message to the class. Now we'll just need to modify this a bit here. We want to call it new array, new array, and new array. Okay, so now we're just using that same for loop to take the new array, parse it out, display it to the screen. Let's go ahead and run it. There's our randomly generated numbers. Should be 20 of them total because we've got 5 rows of 4 elements each. To enhance this even more though, we can now use this nested for loop in a custom method. So let's go here underneath of our create array method. Let's make it public void print array. And then we'll pass to it the int array. We'll just call it array. Or actually the for loop we're using new array. So let's type in new array. And then let's go ahead and just paste in our for loop. Looks like we got an extra curly brace in here, so let's just get rid of all of this. And we need to get rid of that one too. Or no, actually that's our main, that's our class. We should be good to go here. What's up? Oh, I see. We're missing a curly here for the outer 4. So back into main now, we can go ahead and just simply call print array and then pass to it the create 2D array custom method, and we can do whatever we want here. We'll do 5x4 again. And again, it's not a static method, so we got to put the instance of our class in there. Same thing for create array. There we go. Let's go ahead and run it. See, randomly generating 20 values each time we run it. And we can change now the size of this. We could make it very small, say a 2x2 multi-dimensional array, so we get only a total of 4 values, or we could make it 10x10. We could make it even larger than that, but it's going to start generating a lot of numbers at that point. So you got 100 values there. Now I want to add just one more custom method in here. I want to make it so that the user can type in a number between 0 and 99 and see how many times that will occur in this randomly generated 2D array. So we're going to call this public. It's going to return an int, which will be the value that we'll be identifying, searching for. And it's going to be count instance. And we'll pass to it a two-dimensional int array as well as the search value. So let's just declare a variable here called count, set it to 0. And then we'll use our nested for loop to go ahead and search each value within the two-dimensional array. So for int row equals 0, run it as long as the we didn't name the array we're passing in here. We declared what type it's going to be, but we've got to give it a name. So array is what we'll call it here internally. So we want to run this first, this outer loop, till we reach the length of rows. And we'll increment row each time through the loop. And then in the nested for loop, it'll be column equal to 0. We'll run it while array row is less than length, and increment call each time through that loop. And then all we want to do now is just check to see if our array at the specified row and column compares to our search value. We didn't need 3 there, 2 will do. And if that's true, then we're just going to increment our count variable. And then return count as the result. Why are we getting red squigglies here? Oh, didn't set the conditional right, did I? So row less than array length and column less than array row length. And I didn't spell length correctly. And that should be a semicolon. Okay. Now to implement this in our main, our count instance custom method here down in the main, we're going to need to actually take this out of here and go back to our new int new array. So we need to define that outside of the parameters for print array. Oops, I didn't want to put that back in there. I want this now to be new array. And we want to be able to use the same array again when we call our count instance array. And count instance is also going to, in addition to passing new array, will pass whatever the value is that we're searching for. And then new array, we actually have to assign it the results of create array, 2D array, isn't it? 2D array. And we'll just go 5 by 5. When I typed new out there, I wasn't supposed to be there. All right, so we got int of two-dimensional called new array. It's going to take the results of running create 2D array, passing to it 5 row, 5 columns as the parameter. And we're getting a red squiggly there because, again, it's an instance method. And the same thing for count instance down here. It's an instance method. So I'm used to doing static methods. Anyway, that's going to make it work. Let's go ahead and run it. Now you can see we did not get our count here because I didn't print it. So what we really want to do here is a system out and have it print the results of running that count instance. In fact, we should do here is put some text in. The search value was found blank times in the array. And let's just get inside of our red vertical line here, so we don't want to get it too wide. Just makes it a little easier to read this way. All right, let's go ahead and run it again. So we're looking for the number 5. That's what we're passing to it. What we should do here is probably reduce the random number generator. Let's just make it 0 to 24. So we'll put 25 in there. That way we'll be more likely to get a 5. We'll increase the size of the array. Let's go 10 by 10, so that'll be 100 values that get generated for, or 100 elements in the array. So that way out of 100 elements we should get, and if they're all randomly generating 0 to 24, we should be able to see number 5 at least a few times. So there we go. The value was found that many times. And we could scroll through there and just double check it, but I'm pretty sure that the program's right on that. Now let's just take this one step further, because we put a fixed value in here for what we're searching for. So let's create a variable called search item, or search value. And then we'll ask the user to enter a number between 0 and 24. And then we'll do int search value is going to be equal to, and we don't have an instance of our scanner yet, so we better do that. So let's create scanner S as a new scanner object. So then we'll assign s.nextInt to the search value. Okay, so this time now we're going to take a number between 0 and 24 from the user, and that will determine the search value then that gets searched for in our array. So we'll go ahead and run it. Well, we're going to need to change, we're printing it first here, so that's just kind of out of order, but let's go ahead and enter a number here. Let's just say 12, and see that we got 12 3 times in that array. But since it's outputting the array first, what we probably ought to do is move that down till after we take the value from the user. Okay, let's try that again. There we go. So it's asking first now for the number that we want to search for. Let's type in 13. And then it generates the array. And 13 was found in there one time. In fact, we could just fix this up one more because it's not real specific about what that value is in our output. So instead of saying the search value, why don't we say the number plus search value plus was found X amount of times. Okay, let's run that. So number between 0 and 24, let's go with 10. And so the number 10 was found 6 times, and we need a space right here. One last time, we'll run it. Let's pick the number 24. And 24 was found 3 times. So in this guided practice, what you're going to want to do is create a custom method that creates 2D arrays, and it takes in 2 parameters, the rows and the columns, how many rows and how many columns that we want to use to generate the 2D array. And that array then gets returned from that custom method. Then you want to have a custom method that prints a 2D array. And then a custom method that will search the array for a particular value that's input by the user. Until next time, happy coding. If you liked this video, please click the like button and leave us a comment down below. I also would appreciate it if you would subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, click the notification bell so that you'll be notified when new videos are posted.